feeling stuck and finding clarity to me is about reconnecting to our soul, reconnecting to our higher self. The miracle in our lives that we may not realize is that we're created from divine love, and our journey in our life now is returning to that love and living with that love within our lives. The miracle is not waiting to the end of our life to experience that love. It's about returning it to it now. And I have several different steps that I offer to people to connect to their soul, to hear their soul's language, and to use their intuition, use that gut inner self, that quiet voice that always speaks the truth to you. Our soul always knows what to do. And when you learn the five languages of your soul, or the different ways that your soul's is trying to get your attention and is talking to you, you stop living from reaction and you start living from creation. A couple of the speakers have already talked about creation is so important in the time when you're feeling stuck and when you're not clear about what's going on. The clarity around us on the outer world isn't the clarity that we need. It's not the clarity that we thrive under. So when you stop doubting yourself and your own intuition, and you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you start asking, what am I being invited to become? That shift changes everything. When I was creating this talk, because I could talk about this for hours, obviously, how can I break this down to a short, concise message to everyone out there is let me try to go through these quick little steps or make it very clear for you. It starts with looking in the mirror, finding your soul, finding who am I? Who's my authentic self? What's operating? What operating system am I using right now? Is to look in the mirror and feel like, is this a stranger to me? Do I know who this is? Or do I feel connected to this man or woman that I'm looking into just look into your eyes and say, who are you? Where are we going with this train? And how are we reacting to our lives? How are we loving our lives? And how are we avoiding our lives? Because it's just a little bit too much. The invitation in our lives can show up, I call them soul appointments. Like Mike Lyles earlier said, breaks my heart to hear that, the struggles that he had, the divorce, his father passing, were soul appointments where his soul is saying, here's what the bigger piece of life looks like. And he took that invitation and ran with it. But here is what your opportunities are if you look to who you really are and you connect to that higher power, that amazing soul that we are all gifted with. Our strongest ally in our lives is our soul. And our soul is often calling us back to ourselves with these soul appointments. So what is soul? I don't want to give you the idea that soul is a religion. We need to go back to church. We need to find God to find our soul, which is very helpful. But that's not what we're talking about. That your soul is your eternal part of yourself. I work with a strong belief system that we are eternal beings, that we are here, we're spirit having a human experience. And the human experience is limited. We're only here for a short time. When we get these soul appointments, that we need to go back to that eternal part of ourselves and from our soul connection, we get a direct connection to source, which is God, which is infinite intelligence, love, and life. Wouldn't you love to have that as your life partner, your life coach, and move into a higher consciousness? This seems unattainable when I say these words. So let's kind of break this down into smaller pieces. Most people have not built a relationship with their soul because we're not taught to do that. We're either taught religion, or we're taught to achieve things, or we're taught to have goals, and we're given morality and cultural belief systems. But sometimes those belief systems override our own internal intuition. It overrides our soul. Emotions in our lives are messengers, but they're not who we are. For instance, a little tip here, emotions are energy and motion. They're messengers. They're telling us things, but they're not who we are. And the big emotions are our soul. It's not our it's not that huge connection, but they are flags, they're guidelines, they're posts, milestone posts along the way of our lives. So we get signals like anger and grief. They are telling us about where we're going. They aren't necessarily telling us who we are. So having a different relationship with your emotional well-being or your big emotions is paramount to understanding how your soul is speaking to you and who your soul really is. So I like to invite people to sit quietly when that chaos, when the huge things happen in our lives that we don't quite understand or we don't have clarity around, just sit quietly and especially when it's wrapped around a big emotion, and invite that big emotion to come sit with you. And you can ask that big emotion, who are you? What are you trying to tell me? And as you sit in this quiet space and you've invited this big emotion to talk to you, it's not you. So you're having a conversation. You also invite in your soul, your higher self, to say, what where am I in my life? What's happening? What do I want to choose? What's the best pathway for me? So you have the big emotion saying you're on the edge of the cliff, and then your soul is saying move 5 feet to the left, and you'll be fine. You see what I mean? We have a team that's working together. So we shift our reaction into conscious living, and we shift being a victim in our lives to having awareness and being able to read our own personal map. So the five languages of the soul, breaking it down to even smaller pieces, is listening to your inner voice and understanding who's talking to you. Is my fear talking to me? Is my soul talking to me? Is my intuition talking to me? Is my culture talking to me? And that quiet inner voice that's loving and it's beneath the emotion. It's not your fear. It's not your critic. It's not your inner naysayer, but it is a gentle, loving voice that says gently, move 5 feet to the left and you'll be safe. You'll be okay. How to access that inner voice is to get off autopilot, get off the past, get into the present moment, and feel your feelings without judgment so that you can discern what they're telling you and then listen beneath your reactions, go underneath those reactions. Yes, I know that you have all this list of things that you must do, and that came from your mother or your father, but we're going to set that aside right now, and we're going to quietly listen to what my own inner wisdom is. So the key to insight is emotions inform you and your soul guides you. Now, the second language is about creating an inner environment for connection. This is so important. Again, remember I said start that quiet little space and grow that quiet little space into more of a meditative place. And those of you who have a strong religion, have a strong faith base, I want to invite you to think about prayer asks the question and quiet meditation receives the answer. So we can ask and ask and ask, and we can forget to be quiet. We can go, why? But we forget to just be that observer, be that creative self that says, what if? What's the invitation? What am I being invited to? And we quiet down that mind, we quiet down that crazy anxiety. I can say the word anxiety, and we move into that sacred space. And why this matters is that our soul language is subtle. Our busy lives drown out our soul language. So it's so important to have that quiet space. And if you could only do it for 3 to 5 minutes, then do it 3 to 5 minutes. Somebody asked the Dalai Lama, how long should I meditate? He says, well, on a good day, about an hour a day. On a bad day, about 2 hours a day. I thought that was great advice, but I find it very difficult to sit in a busy day for 2 hours in meditation. So what I want to invite you to do is do snippets of quietness within your day. Start the day in quietness. Take a break. Stand up, walk around, go into quietness. And for the guidance to make its way through your tangled self till it hits your heart. Pay attention to what your heart is saying and doing, because our heart has the wisdom language within it. Our heart gets it. Our mind does not. Language 3 is take action on your intuition. Build a relationship through action. So you've said your prayer, you sat quietly in meditation, you get a feeling like maybe I ought to do this, or maybe I ought to, give my mother a call, or take this action, give my father a call, or and you argue with yourself all day long until finally at the end of the day you need to take that action on that kind of feeling that came in. I'm going to make that phone call, and you make that phone call, and this beautiful information comes towards you if you stay in the present moment in a place that you never expected it to come. So taking action on small, l- subtle little suggestions that come from your meditation is paramount to building your trust. You're making the you're making the hose bigger for your intuition and your soul to talk to you, but you're also trusting yourself because you took action and you didn't. It wasn't a bad experience. It was a good experience. You maybe got something good from it, and you're learning to trust yourself. So loving, calm, constructive, small nudges come from spirit and in your soul. Taking action is you saying you're welcome. You're inviting that wisdom into your life. So without the action, that big hose, that receptor place of accepting spirit, receiving the wisdom, isn't going to grow without you taking action. Um, and you're building a reciprocal relationship um, with your soul, with your own self, with your higher understanding of life, and your confidence grows. And then you find that you're in charge and you're starting to co create your life when you listen to those little higher power nudges. Now, the fourth language is divine grace. Um, the fuel that yourself, the theme with divine grace is that think of a car and you're putting gas into the car. You could put high propane in, you could put the cheapest gas in. Um, and that goes along with the thoughts that you put into your life. What's running your life? What's fueling your life? What if you went to your soul's gas station and filled your life with the source energy from spirit, from what that divine love that I mentioned at the very beginning? What if you filled yourself with that every day? And when your tank starts getting empty, you go back to that quiet meditative space and said, I'm empty here, fill me up. And grace is what the fuel of grace is: love, it's inspiration, and it's creative power. So don't you want to go to that gas station and fill up your mind, fill up your heart? And how to strengthen this connection, this fuel is return to sacred space constantly. And imagine yourself taking action on once the grace has filled you and you have a sense of, I need to go there, not here, and take that action, and then check in with your well-being. How did that make you feel? Where did that bring you? Where's your level of clarity at this point? What does your body feel like? And then you can use your imagination to go, if I continue to do this, what will my life look like in 3 months from now? What will it look like in a year from now? Does this action increase peace in my life? When we are peaceful and when we are calm, um, we have we do much better in our lives. So bringing that peacefulness and that calm and that trusting yourself get you out of being stuck into possibilities of all these things I can try to do, all these things that I can experience. So the fifth language of your soul is about ideas and creativity. The integration of all of this work creates creative power. I can't say that enough. Creative soul power living. Um, and this creative power includes all of yourself. You've now become aware of your soul's language, but you've also become aware of what gets in the way of your soul's language, which could be your inner parts, an inner angry child, or a protector, or a part of yourself that constantly sabotages your efforts. And your soul can help you recognize those parts, and you can take the keys away. The keys of the bus do not belong in a 3-year-old inner child's part that is having a temper tantrum and it's full of fear. It belongs to your aware self. Although you can listen to these parts of yourself that tell you who you are, tell you what they want, you begin to integrate the noisy mind, all the parts that are talking to you, that noisy mind, into your soul, into your soul's wisdom, into that calm, peaceful place. So your inner creativity begins to flourish. New ideas start to come. You're not taking yourself out of the game because you have doubts. You're having the doubts and you're sitting with them, but you're focusing on the power, the soul power that you are actually wanting to fill your life with. So you're discerning ego, those soul parts with your soul. You know who's talking, you know who's running the bus, and you want your aware self to run the bus. Not necessarily your soul, not necessarily your inner child, but your aware self, to integrate them all together so that you are a co-creator in your life. And the final shift in this language is going from reacting to life to becoming the artist in your life, to realizing this is an opportunity I want to take, or this is an opportunity I don't want to take, that kind of thing. So I want to invite you to think about living from that new paradigm of having a relationship with your soul. And I want you to you're welcome to come into my life. Go to my Facebook page, Soul Power Living, or listen to my podcast, Angelscapes Podcast. And I have all little kind of crumbs in all of these places to help you live that soul power life. And thank you for inviting me to be a speaker.
And every story can change the world. Together we are global speakers talk.